now, Reform UK has overtaken Labour in a national poll for the very first time, pushing Sir Keir Starmer's party into third place.
Yes, wow, this is the first time this has happened. A jubilant Nigel Farage took to X to respond to the news, declaring, "We're just getting started." That's a dramatic picture, isn't it?
It is. I mean, that's typical Nigel Farage. This will undoubtedly come as a bitter blow for the Prime Minister, who yesterday sought to reset his flailing government with 6 new milestones. We'll be discussing that in detail shortly, actually.
To add to the...
Well, to add to the... Right, so those milestones, to add to the first step, the missions, the foundations and the pillars.
There you go. Can you remember all of that? And they've all got different names, of course.
It's so simple.
Anyway, let's discuss all this with the former spokesman for Reform UK, Gawain Towler. I guess the question is, could Nigel Farage actually be the next Prime Minister of this country if the polling's doing so well?
Well, that's the plan. Clearly, that's the plan.
But do you reckon... Well, yeah, I guess you would say that.
Yeah, is it achievable?
I have a hard and fast rule about polling. If it makes you smile, ignore it. Don't believe it. If it makes you feel good, don't believe it. This didn't make me smile. This made me laugh out loud when I read it yesterday.
Right.
You don't believe it?
No, I don't. But what I do believe is in the trajectory, the direction of travel. I do not believe that poll. That's an outlier. That's a wild outlier. In Wales, 35%, 7 points in the lead across the board. I mean, this is extraordinary figures for Reform. But I do believe the trajectory. It is not unusual that we're hitting the 20s. It is not unusual that we're pushing the Tories, pushing Labour. So this is an outlier. I'm delighted. As I say, it made me laugh beyond smile. But do I believe it? No. That being said, yes, there's absolutely no reason why the Reform shouldn't have the ambition to be the government of this country, or at least part of the government of this country.
Interesting you say that, at least part of the government.
Well, who knows what happens? Many a slip, quick, toughened lip.
Well, indeed, Gawain. But that requires them going to... I mean, look, it's a long way away, but...
It's miles
let's say
away.
there is a hung parliament, for argument's sake, which is what you're suggesting. What happens? Is Nigel Farage really going to say to Kemi Badenoch, it may not be her by then, but is he really going to say to Kemi Badenoch, let's pull together here? After all the fighting over the last, who knows how many years, well, more than 5, more like 10, 15 years, what's going to happen there? Is that
it's
just handing it to Lib Dem, aren't we?
If the option is, if it is a hung parliament, then, of course, Mr Farage can spend his time talking to the SNP, he can talk to Plaid Cymru, he can talk to the Tories, he can talk to Labour, he can talk to the Lib Dems. Which one's he most likely, and there's greater crossover, at least in their support base, if not in the numpties that make up the green benches? That makes sense. We don't know. Now, I think you're right that Kemi is unlikely to... I think it's unlikely that Kemi will make it to the general election. Who knows who replaces her, and I think that will happen. But the problem is, I cannot see the Tory party ever electing a centre-right leader again, because vast numbers of Tory members have already left and joined Reform. The sort of people who might support a generic-style candidate are already in Reform. So where are the voters? Where are the membership voters for the Tories?
Wayne, if you don't mind holding that thought, we're going to jump over to our political editor, Christopher Hope, because he's been speaking to the Prime Minister's spokesperson for us. Christopher, what have we found out then?
Yes, so breaking this lunchtime, there's been an announcement from the Cabinet Office, probably via something called the London Gazette, of as many as 4 people being stripped of honours. We're waiting to find out who they are and getting their reactions, but that's quite a big moment, I think. You don't often see people losing honours. Again, we don't know the full detail of that. We'll bring it to you as soon as we can. The PM's deputy official spokesman has told journalists this lunchtime the cases being highlighted speak for themselves, and there's no suggestion here that the honours system is in disrepute or is under review, and we'll judge those as we see fit. But 4 people this lunchtime being stripped of honours given out by the King or by the Queen. On Donald Trump's visit tomorrow to Paris, he's going to look at the reopening of the Notre Dame Cathedral, a spectacular building which was just nearly destroyed by fire and has been rebuilt in the past 6 years in France. The Prince of Wales is expected to be going for the UK, but the Prime Minister is not going. He is spending the weekend in Downing Street. Asked if President Macron were stealing a march on the UK by getting to meet the President-elect Trump. We are told by number 10 that the PM had a very productive meeting with Mr. Trump some time ago. There's a long-standing relationship, and that relationship continues. There's the idea that maybe some of these, with the plan for change, some of these are confusing all the foundations and milestones and missions. The number 10 is clear. They are clear, they tell us. They say the missions are the mandate for change. The foundations run through what they do, and the milestones are a tangible way for the government, for the public, and to hold us all to account. So there is a degree of structure through all those different ways of working out how well the government's doing.
I'm glad you brought that up, because we are going to be discussing that later on. I've got a chart here. We've got the foundations, I've got the milestones, I've got the steps. It's all going to make perfect sense, I'm sure. Gawain Towler, thank you for that, Christopher Hope. That was our political editor, Christopher Hope, there, the latest.
So Donald Trump being in Paris for this Notre Dame reopening, Gawain.
Yeah.
Prince of Wales being there. Presumably Keir Starmer could have gone if he wanted to.
I'm sure he
Why
could.
would he miss such an occasion?
Because I'm sure he's working with the new great brain of the Labour Party, Torsten Bell, the man responsible for the Edstone, on milestones. Who knows what's going to be carved on the new Edstone milestone things?
Seems utterly bizarre. What an opportunity.
Well, it does. I think he claims to have this long-standing and great and deep relationship with Donald Trump. The only relationship we had Donald Trump with rude things said on Twitter by most of Labour. The person, of course, we know who has the deep and long-standing relationship with Donald Trump, and it ain't Keir Starmer.
He's leaning on this dinner that he had with David Lammy and Donald Trump a little while ago, isn't he? He keeps referring back to that. Oh, don't worry, the relationship's great. We had this 2-hour dinner.
Macron did this before.
Macron, got the red card.
Yeah. And so there you have an American president who desperately wants to be in good terms with the UK, really keen. Macron, he's in 6 and 7s. His government's collapsed. The Prime Minister's gone, hell to pay. And yet, Macron has the wisdom and the wit that seems to be completely lacking in British governments, not just this one, but the previous ones too.
Gawain, might number 10 say that they were facing criticism for never hear Keir, for always being away, and now finally he's decided to stay at home in number 10, and he's getting criticised for not going to France?
Well, he could do a day trip on Eurostar.
It's only Paris. It's not very far.
It's really not a big problem. It isn't like going to some place in the middle of the Starnates where nobody's listening and you're the only person of any supposed importance there. It's not like going to Suva.
You're talking about COP.
Yes, indeed. Cop out, I think, would be a better way of putting it. No, I think he does have a lot of trouble. You had the passing of the farming tax, where you see what I suppose you might call the new Labour red hedge is going to find itself grubbed up by Reform and by the Tory party in the next election. He has that problem on his hands. He himself is probably lost in the tic-tac-toe of his new system of milestones and pledges.
Probably getting a bit overwhelming, isn't it?
So maybe he's got to sit at home and sort of work out
got to revise,
the cat's cradle of what he's supposed to be doing, and then perhaps he'll have something to say. But frankly, he should be. Surely it
seems like an obvious one to go to, but what do I know? Gawain, we're going to have to leave it there.
No problem.
But thank you so much again, Gawain Towler. Brilliant stuff. Also, I'm very curious to know who these 4 people are who've been stripped of their honours. I wonder who they could be.